we say at my company, like, you teach people how to treat you. So if you don't want to be working at 10 at night, then you can't be responding to emails and texts at 10 at night. Like, you have to just not answer and be okay with that. And most things, especially in real estate, unless you're negotiating an offer, most things can wait a day. Most things are not truly an emergency. So it's being confident enough in your value to your clients that you can not respond to everything right away.
Welcome to the J. Wells CFO Show. I am your host, Jeremy Wells, and with me today is very special guest, Ashley Harwood. She is the sales strategist for Introverts. Now, I consider myself an introvert, but we are in a field where we have to get out there and talk to people. And that is sometimes a bit of a challenge for those of us who identify as introverts. And Ashley is coming on today to talk about how she's helping people with that. So Ashley, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, how you got into this, and how you're helping people. And thank you so much for being on this episode.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So my background is in real estate. I've built a fairly successful real estate business as a solo agent for the past 6 years. And it was very challenging in the beginning. My first year and a half were just awful because I didn't understand my personality type. I didn't understand that there is more than one way to go get business. So I spent a lot of time cold calling, and it sucked. And I got no results from it. And I understand it works for some people, it doesn't work for everyone. So once I did some research, I actually read Quiet by Susan Cain, realized that I'm an introvert, made some changes in my lead gen and in my business, and then my business, improved a lot, like ×4 in 1 year to the next. So then I was working with one of my business coaches a little over a year ago, and we came up with the idea of helping other people who don't fit into that traditional sales, or real estate personality type.
Gotcha,
so that's where this business was born.
Awesome, fantastic. So before we go any further, we have to be clear about what we mean by some of these things. So what to you is an introvert?
Good question. Yes, let's define this. So an introvert, by definition, is someone who gets their energy from being alone versus extroverts who get their energy from being around other people.
Awesome. So what does this mean in terms of trying to be a professional? What does this mean in terms of trying to be a realtor or an accountant or a salesperson? How does this factor into the day-to-day work?
So it means that introverts really need to be careful about our energy, because getting alone time doesn't come naturally in our businesses. So we have to be very cognizant of carving out that alone time to replenish our energy. And the first step is being aware of it. And then the next step is learning how to fit that in the calendar and protect it.
So how, in terms of energy, what kind of energy are you talking about? Are you talking about like just physical energy or mental energy or emotional energy? Like what is being drained, and how does this recovery happen?
It's a little of all of them. It's mostly mental.
Okay.
It can be emotional. It can be physical. That more is, around calories and exertion. But it's a good analogy, because if you've ever felt hangry, or you don't eat enough and then you're not a nice person, that happens to me. The same thing happens with mental energy, especially for introverts. It can be very acute, and you've probably noticed, I know I've noticed in my life, when my mental energy is about to be totally drained and then a switch flips, and then all of a sudden I'm snapping at people and I have no patience for anything, and that's an energy problem, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. So what, a lot of people, even I sometimes will observe as, maybe a mood problem. Maybe that person just showed, slightly woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or that person is, yeah, maybe they need to just lighten up, right? And these kinds of things. But you're saying that instead, this is, in a similar way to, it's been a while since you've had a meal, so you need a sandwich. So you're saying it's been a lot of interaction with others today, you need a break.
Yes, for a lot of people, that's how that will show up.
Interesting. And so compare that then to extroverts, right? What's the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, as far as, a lot of social interaction, and then what?
So for extroverts, they thrive on social interaction. It does not drain their energy, it replenishes it. So when they will feel drained is when they're spending too much time alone. And the reason that doesn't come up as a problem, it doesn't seem like a problem as often, is because in the way our society is structured, and being a business owner, especially in the real estate world, you're naturally around a lot of people most of the time. So that's not hard to find time with other people.
Right. Interesting. So whereas extroverts are getting more energy from the interactions that they're having, and so doing business makes them want to do more business, networking makes them want to do more networking, and sitting down and having drinks with colleagues make them want to just keep doing that more and more. For an introvert, it's the opposite. At some point they hit a point where enough's enough and they need to go recharge by themselves.
Exactly.
Interesting. So you said that, you went through a process of learning this about yourself, of figuring out that this, introversion, that you are an introvert. What does that process look like, of actually finding that out for yourself? Is there a way to find this out before you have to go through all of this of, starting a career and realizing that the way this career goes isn't really for you, and then maybe, bad things happening? Is there a way that I can just know whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert?
Yes, there is. There are a lot of personality tests online that are free. 16personalities.com is a good one. It's pseudo Myers-Briggs. And so it will spit out a 4-letter kind of code for you. And the first one is either an E for extrovert or an I for introvert. So that's a pretty good, easy one to take online. I recommend reading the book Quiet. It goes really in depth into this. And I also just want to say that a big reason I started my company, Move Over Extroverts, is to speak to the introverts who are running businesses and to encourage them and say, yes, you can build a very successful business as an introvert. The way you go about it just might look a little bit different. Your schedule might look different. Your lead gen might look different, and that's okay. So that is my main message in the world.
Interesting. So how so? How is it different? How, compared to the way extroverts might just go out and, the way you get more clients is to go to more networking events and talk to more people. How is this going to be different for an introvert? And how, if they need a different way of doing things, how are they going to be competitive with extroverts?
So I will try to give a short answer. I could spend an entire day talking about this, answering this question.
Right. What are some examples? Because you mentioned scheduling your day, things like that. So how would an introvert schedule look different compared to an extrovert's?
There's going to be more alone time.
Okay.
And that will allow the introvert to be more productive in their working hours and bring a higher level of joy and happiness and energy to their interactions with their clients, with their prospects, with everyone. So that piece alone is going to result in more business. Because even though you might be spending fewer hours talking to people, the time that you are spending with them is going to be more productive.
Interesting. So quality over quantity.
Exactly. I also encourage people to choose a source of lead gen that, number one, they really enjoy doing. And number two, if possible, pick something that you're already doing anyway in your life.
Mm. What are some examples there?
The easiest example there are the people who have kids and they're able to, I don't have kids, so I never had this opportunity. But I hear from a lot of people I speak to, like, oh, I have to be at the soccer game or whatever, and I don't have time to make my calls. Fine, you're at the soccer game. Talk to all the other parents. You have to be there anyway, pretending to watch this game. Like, just talk to the parents and turn that into lead gen. That's an
But
easy example.
but aren't introverts shy? Aren't introverts antisocial? Aren't introverts averse to talking, to communicating, to being sociable?
Nope. Those are very common myths about introverts. There are shy introverts. There are also shy extroverts.
Hmm.
They don't necessarily go together. What can happen though, is if an introvert goes into that event, they show up at the soccer game and they've already been on the phone talking to expireds and getting yelled at for 3 hours that morning, they're not going to have energy to talk to the parents.
Interesting. So it's not so much a question of being. It's not so much an issue of being shy or antisocial. It's just they're depleted at that point. They just don't have what it takes anymore to keep having more conversations.
Correct. So I think of energy as a resource, just like time or money. And it's important to be very purposeful about where you're spending that resource.
Interesting. So the same way that your wallet might run out of cash, and so there's no more money to spend, you might mentally just be drained, and so you just can't do much more socializing until you've had a break.
Yeah, exactly. And another good analogy is like your phone battery. You have to plug
Mm,
the phone into the wall. And as
gotcha.
soon as you unplug it, it starts depleting.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So you mentioned alone time, that introverts need to be scheduling alone time into their schedule. What does that alone time look like? I mean, is that taking a nap? Is that going and going to a massage parlor? I mean, what's happening during this alone time?
So it's going to look different for everyone. One of the things I encourage my people to do so I have an online course, and in that course we go through an exercise of making a list of things that replenish your energy. So for some people, like myself, I love a spa, I love a massage. Some people don't want to be touched. Then a massage will cause them more anxiety and not
Mm,
relax them. Naps are pretty universally awesome. So I would say if you don't know where to start with a nap.
interesting. Interesting. So is this rest time, or is it possible to keep working through this alone time? If I'm busy, or I'm behind on some projects and I'm an introvert, so I still need this alone time. Does that mean I'm falling behind on work, or is there still room for doing work just by myself?
There's room for doing work by yourself, certainly, as long as it's something that you feel more energized afterwards. And it depends on what the thing is. So a good practice to collect that data is to start journaling and
Hmm.
just be very hyper aware. Make a journal entry in the morning. Here's how I'm feeling, and then kind of after each segment of what you're doing throughout the day. If for this specific question, I would make a note of how you feel before you're doing the alone time business activity, and then how you're feeling afterwards.
Interesting. So there's a lot of self-analysis here, self-reflection.
Yes, there's not a one size fits all.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So when your what do you call them, clients or students, the people you work with, when they go through this analysis, this reflection, this process of identifying as an introvert with you, what are they telling their colleagues, their bosses, their friends and family? What are they sharing with them in order to get some acceptance of the fact that you know what do you mean you need to go and be by yourself for 2 hours? We're having a family event here. I mean, how do we start, letting those around us understand what this means for us?
Well, it's a good question. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't even have to have those conversations because people would understand. Maybe in 10 years, with the work that everyone's doing in this space, it'll be like that. But you're right. For now, there are a lot of expectations put on individuals to be much more social than a lot of us are comfortable with. And it comes down to setting boundaries and saying in a very loving way, this is important for me to take care of myself. And if you want me to be the best version of myself and not be, grumpy pants at Christmas dinner, I'm going to need that. Something,
Yeah.
whatever it is, make a joke. It doesn't matter, but you have to find something that will allow you to guard that time.
Right. So in terms of this depletion of the battery, right? If we keep going with that analogy, that because talking about family events or big social settings, right? So if my phone is just sitting here on, but I'm not actually using it, then the battery will last a lot longer than if I'm, playing music and watching videos and texting people and all, and using it a lot. Is it similar to where if I'm just sitting one-on-one like you and I are talking now versus if I'm in a room full of people, is there a difference between how my energy is going to get depleted as an introvert?
Absolutely. And that is the next step of that analogy. So I'm glad you beat me to it. That's perfect. If you're pulling up YouTube videos, that's going to drain your battery faster. And there are a lot of factors that are individual for people. I know for me, loud noise depletes my energy much faster than quiet. So I could be in a quiet networking event, maybe a breakfast with 20 people, something like that would drain my battery a lot slower than a giant loud convention hall with 10,000 people. Like I can take a very small amount of that and then I'm out of there.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah. So before I became an accountant, I was a college instructor, and so there was, I would teach a small seminar of 10, 12 people versus going to a lecture hall of 400, and I would be in those two settings for the same amount of time and feel very different afterwards. Even to the point of which, if the discussion was good with 10 or 12 people and a couple students wanted to hang around and keep talking, I was open to that. After dealing with 400 students for the same amount of time, I was running to get back to my office and shutting and locking the door so that I could just kind of shut that down. So I think that's interesting. So that we need to, introverts need to be planning this alone time probably even more carefully when we know that we're getting into these bigger, more intense social events. That the more social we're expected to be, even the more defensive of this alone time we're going to have to be.
Correct. And this can all be planned ahead of time. And this is not to say to avoid these events. I would never say don't go to a conference. You just might need to, again, come at it a different way. I wrote a whole blog post about surviving conferences, and some of the main things are don't go to all the sessions, just go to a couple. Don't go to every single after hours, or pick one or the other. Get your own hotel room, just stuff like that where you can plan around it. But you also might not want to go to something giant like that every month. Maybe you go to one or two a year. It's just like spending money. Maybe you're not going to fly first class every single flight, but maybe once or twice a year.
Interesting. Yeah. And you're already exhausted from the travel and from sleeping in an unfamiliar bed, and then the weird food that you've got to eat in the airports and eating out a lot, and so you're already running lower on your battery than you normally would. And so to put yourself in that kind of situation, you're already at a bit of a disadvantage if you're not watching out for yourself.
Right. So it goes into necessary self-care. And I wouldn't call
Yeah.
it indulgent self-care. I would say it's necessary because otherwise, if you don't do it, you're going to burn out. And I can say that because I've been on the burnout roller coaster for years.
You mentioned 10 years from now, maybe it's going to be easier. Maybe, there won't have to be as much explanation. Do you think there's a shift? You mentioned Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which came out, about 10 years ago now. It seems like there's been a little bit of a shift now. And so do you get the sense that, especially in these, sales oriented careers such as real estate, do you get the sense that there's a shift, that it's easier for, introverts, your clients, to publicly identify as an introvert, to start getting the support of their colleagues as an introvert, or is that still taking time?
I think we're at the very, very beginning of it. I think there's a lot of good work being done by people like Susan. Adam Grant has been a really good advocate for introverts. But there's a long way to go. At least now I started this business by teaching live classes in real estate offices, and I've taught about 30 of them. And at least now when I pitch the idea and when people are talking about it, people know what the word introvert is. Usually they've heard of it. They're not
Right.
like, this
Yeah.
foreign word, what language are you speaking, lady? So
Yeah.
there's a beginning to it, but there's still a lot of misconceptions about it. The biggest one being that introverts are antisocial, which is just not true.
Right. So have you had a client, and if you haven't, just imagine for the moment that you do have a client who comes to you and says, look, I agree with you. I believe I'm an introvert. I understand that, this alone time is what I need, but I just don't think that's going to work. With the people I work with, they expect more. They expect me to show up to the social events. They expect me to stay after for the after hours events and all this. And I just have to do this, or else, I'm worried I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to be able to do any business. What do you say to this client? How do you, do you tell this client to just, try to wing it, and then, take an extra day a week off or something? Or, how do you get this person to both, if we still have these misconceptions and we're still have this lack of understanding, how are you, helping clients bridge that gap between, okay, I understand this about myself, but I just don't think I can actually tell people this yet.
Hmm. That's an interesting one. I actually haven't come up against that
Mm.
because most of the people who are in my programs and who I've encountered, they're their own boss. So the
Ah,
only expectation is around any sort of social expectation, which is pretty easy to say no to if they need to. It's not like they're going to get fired.
interesting.
In that circumstance, with that type of client, if their job was on the line, that would be more tricky.
Yeah.
I'd ask a lot more questions of them and really dig deep into how important are these things? Are you assuming they're more important than they are? Are you really going to get fired if you don't go to everything? I think a lot of times we make assumptions, or we think that people have these really high expectations of us that they will not budge on. But if we give them a chance to budge, then maybe they will. There's For that person, this hypothetical person, there has to be something in the middle. Maybe you go to half of them. Maybe you go for an hour and make up some excuse afterwards. Doesn't matter.
Interesting. No, that's good. I think especially that point that, maybe some of this stuff isn't really as important as you're making it out to be, right? That you don't have to say yes to every invitation. And I think that right there is empowering in and of itself. Even if you don't bring up being an introvert, and so I can't go to this, after hours cocktail party or something, just saying, no, I have other things I need to do tonight. That right there is empowerment. And so just having the courage to do that.
Right. And they don't need to know what it is. You could say, I have another appointment afterwards. I have a meeting after, whatever. It doesn't matter. They don't need to know. They don't need to know that your appointment is with yourself to take a nap. And I use that all the time in my real estate business when I was taking days off. And I didn't want to tell my client, I can't meet with you because I'm taking a day off. That, They don't need to know it's a day off. They just need to know, sorry, I'm not available on Thursday. How about
Hmm.
Friday or Monday or, whatever.
Yeah.
It is okay.
And yeah, so maybe I'm concerned that if I tell people, well, I'm taking a day off, that they're going to say, well, he's obviously not committed to working for me, so I'm going to go find somebody else. I mean, is that a reality, or is there a way you can manage those expectations with clients so that to them it's not, it doesn't seem like you're abandoning them for a whole 24 hours, right? I mean, it's real estate, it's cutthroat, right? We got a lot of realtors out there. So I can pick and choose who I want to work with. And if you're not available today, well, I'll go find somebody who is.
Right. So there are a lot of layers to this. The first one is that boundaries are important, and the right type of client is going to respect you more because you have boundaries and because you are not available 24 hours a day. The days of that being the expectation have kind of gone away. Most clients understand that you are a human being and you may or may not have a family, and you're not available 24 hours a day. So you don't necessarily have to come out and say that with your clients, but there are ways. We say at my company, like, you teach people how to treat you. So if you don't want to be working at 10 at night, then you can't be responding to emails and texts at 10 at night. Like, you have to just not answer and be okay with that. And most things, especially in real estate, unless you're negotiating an offer, most things can wait a day. Most things are not truly an emergency. So it's being confident enough in your value to your clients that you can not respond to everything right away. It's also, for new agents, it's also more, a little bit more professional. It makes you seem like you have other things going on. You're not sitting around waiting for your one client to text you.
Interesting. So it might actually improve your image in the workplace or among your clients to say, no, I'm going to need 24 hours before I can get around to that because I'm taking a personal day or I'm doing something, I've got something else going on that day.
Right. You don't even have to give the explanation if you want. You can just say, I'm sorry, I'm unavailable until this time. If you're going to be away for longer, when I go out of the country for a week at a time on vacation, I'll put somebody else in charge of the business. And the way I phrase it in my email signature, for any real estate emergencies, please reach out to so-and-so. And guess what? Usually they don't, because it's fine. It can wait. Everything can wait.
Yeah. And it's interesting you said that because, we start to teach people how to treat us. And I think eventually we that goes even a step further into, we start attracting the kind of people around us that are meant to work with us and that we want to work with. And that, we start being more selective about who we're working with. And so the referrals we're getting from them are, following those selection criteria as well. And so it just naturally kind of starts to flow that we start working with people more and more that we want to be working with, rather than having to, just hope that we get good clients and try to weed out the good from the bad clients. That ultimately we just start getting a significant number of good clients coming our way to where we don't have to worry so much about bad clients.
Absolutely. That's also, there's a good script in there for asking for referrals from the clients you like. You can say, I really love working with you, and I try to only work with great people like you. Who else do you know in your world who might want to move?
Fantastic. Yeah. No, that's really interesting. So in trying to reach out to introverts and help them feel more confident and better about being in sales, what are some of the challenges that you've faced in building your own business, and how have you tried to overcome those challenges?
Are you talking about challenges of being an introvert or just challenges in general?
Just challenges in general. Yeah, just challenges in general building your business. Yeah, shifting, more in terms of just you being a business owner now. Yeah.
Right. Well, one of the things I had taken for granted in my real estate business was I was part of a large franchise. And so all of the branding and a lot of the marketing was done for me. And so launching my own business I had to do all of the logistics and the back end stuff, and that's what I've spent all of 2019 doing, creating a website and a logo and the email that connects to the website and all these like silly little things that you don't think about, but they're kind of a time suck. And
Right.
also spreading the word and booking classes and building out the online course. Those have all been challenging to try to do all at the same time. And also, by the way, I was selling real estate all this year as well. So it just,
Interesting.
and I'm moving across the country in the next few weeks. So it's a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
going on.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of challenges starting a new business. It really is. And the best thing that I can say that I've done is I've had really good people helping me.
Interesting. And to tie it back to being an introvert just for a second, how if marketing, right, setting this up was a challenge, is being an introvert make that even more challenging, you think, relative to being an extrovert, in terms of just marketing, in terms of just we talked about sales, actually interacting with clients and that kind of thing, but in terms of just putting your name out there, is that more or less difficult for an introvert, would you say?
I would say neither. I would say it's
Okay.
not more difficult as an introvert or easier. It's kind of, I would say the two are unrelated.
Okay. Interesting. Gotcha. So, um, if somebody comes to you and says, whether they identify as an introvert or an extrovert, or a lot of different personality types out there, one of these other personality types, and they say, that it seems like people with my personality type are struggling, and I'd really like to help them out. How would you recommend that they go about trying to figure out a way to help people like them out in their fields, in their businesses?
I would say just do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people, find out what their pain points are, where are they struggling, and then find the people who have that personality type and have been successful. Reach out to them and see what they've done.
Gotcha. You mentioned having a business coach. Have you had, individuals helping you throughout this process of, both in terms of real estate and this business, that, individuals that have helped you along the way?
Yes, I have had 4 different business coaches,
Wow.
3 in real estate. The last one, the last real estate one, helped me transition over into this new company. And then he actually referred me to my current business coach, who is not at all affiliated with real estate, but she helps people build the type of uh, like education-based business that I'm building.
Interesting.
So it's
Very
been
cool.
really wonderful.
Yeah. Good deal. Good deal. So would you say that's been pivotal, in your business? Would that be part of your recommendation, as well as find somebody to, help coach you through this process of building a business?
Yes, absolutely. Do you mind if I shout out their names?
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Shout out to Peter Pizzetto and Shannon Hernandez. And so Peter introduced me to Shannon, and Shannon is my coach now. Having these 2 people to help me along the way has been huge. There are a lot of things that I had planned to do from January 2019 to October, and they were all great plans, and I probably could have gotten them done in the next decade. But the fact that I took the leap and hired my current coach, Shannon, I've been able to get so much accomplished in the past 2 months. It's not even funny. Like, I planned this entire retreat that was just a very small brainchild in October, and now it's completely done. Hotels booked, everything. Tickets are on sale. Same thing with my online course. It had been created in my head for 10 months, and now I'm 2 videos away from it being totally done. So having a coach or somebody to hold you accountable is really, really critical when building a business.
Well, tell us, briefly tell us about this retreat and this and the course that you're teaching, so that we can share this with the listeners.
Sure. So the retreat is half workshop, half vacation. End of October, I'm taking 15 people to Aruba.
Wow.
And yeah, it's going to be amazing. It is specifically for introverts. and I'm going to be speaking on how your energy affects your bank account.
Nice.
Very exciting. Yes, we have,
Yeah.
right now when we're recording this, we have 14 spots available.
Interesting. Okay, good deal. So we will get the word out about that. And what about the online course?
The online course was created for the people who couldn't make it to my live classes because of timing and geography. And so it is all pre-recorded sessions. It's going to be about 20 videos, give or take. So it's a lot of content, and it's again for introverts, for entrepreneurs, not just in real estate, but obviously that's my background. So that's kind of what I talk about a little bit more. We talk about energy. We talk about building out a schedule that works really well. We talk about your lead gen and then leverage, how to leverage things in your life. So that will be launching in January, maybe February. Hopefully, I have to get like the graphics done or whatever. In the meantime, I have a free mini course that's like an overview of what the big course is going to be about. So the
Very
two things
cool.
are called the Quiet Success Program and the Quiet Success Retreat. And then the mini course is the Quick Start Program. So everything's on
Awesome. Good deal. Well, we will definitely get links to that in the show notes and the description. So, actually, if listeners want to get a hold of you, if they've got questions, if they have concerns about being an introvert in the workplace or out in business, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So there's a lot of info on my website, moveoverextroverts.com. I spend a lot of my time on Facebook, and I run a Facebook group called Introvert Entrepreneurs. So if you want to check that out, and you can find me there, send me a message through that as well. That would be great.
Good deal. Awesome. And we will have, like I said, we'll have links to all that in the show notes and description. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on here. I think there's a ton of great value. If you've read Quiet like Ashley or me, then you know that there are a lot more introverts out there in the workplace and in the business field than you realize. In fact, if you're not one yourself, you probably know several. And so this is definitely an important topic for people out there trying to sell, trying to survive, trying to make a living for themselves. So definitely a lot of good information here. Please look at Ashley's content. Please consider her course. If you think you're an introvert, or hey, even if you're not, but this is going to help you understand the people that you're around and that you're working with. For sure. So thank you again, Ashley, so much for being here. Thank you to the listeners. The show notes in the description are below for links to everything we talked about here. I am Jeremy Wells. You can follow me at JWellsCFO across all the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Good deal. So Ashley, thank you again one more time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for listening and watching. Have a good one.